Hello, Itzel. Thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's so great to be here with both of you.
Yes. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm Itzel. I'm founder of Attuned Living, which is a coaching website, a coaching company. And my coaching is very much based on finding who you really are. So it's really about the spiritual journey of connecting with yourself, of healing yourself, and of loving yourself.
I love that. And tell us a bit about what someone who signs up with a coaching program with you, what they go through.
Well, I have a few programs, and I really try to personalize whatever service I offer to the person I'm working with. Certainly, there are certain tools and certain practices that apply to everybody. So I will always work with people on their self-talk, on giving themselves compassion, on managing difficult emotions, managing stress. So these are the baselines that I share with just about everyone that walks through my door. And then from there, I really try to personalize it. You know, some people come in with relationship issues. Some people come in single, wanting a relationship. Some people want to get out of a relationship. Some people aren't about relationship. That just happens to be a big piece of what I do. But whatever it is, I personalize it to meet their needs. But in the end, ultimately, all of it boils down to how you speak to yourself, how you speak to others, and how you connect with who you truly are, right? With love, with compassion, and with peace and joy in your heart.
So Itzel, I have a question. I'm gonna
go shut this door.
Okay. Since we're all in the mamahood group together, I would love to kind of hear like any stories, any people reaching out in regards to, you know, what questions they have for you, what you help them with, in that kind of realm. If you can highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say a big piece of what makes me really unique is I have a really deep knowledge well, and experience around compassionate communication. So people will often come to me with things like, you know, I'm having a real challenge in my relationship, or I'm having difficulty getting my child to do what I want them to do. You know, how do I talk to them so that they do what I want them to do? Or how do I talk to them so that we can have peace in our home? Those are the kinds of questions I get a lot.
Mm-hmm. And what have you got, like, after working with you? What, like, things have they said, or like certain things that, like, what does a journey look like with you?
Yeah, well, I would love to talk a little bit about the evolution of that. So when I first started with the coaching, right, I would say like, oh, say this. I would like write out the email, like send this email, you know, just fill in a couple details here and here, and that'll just be great. That'll work for you. Or that'll help foster connection, right? I was all about connection. I still am all about connection. But I took my experience and really thought like, oh, if I gave them just the right words, and that's how I took a lot of these teachings for myself. Like if I had just the right words, then I could smooth over any challenges, right? But what I've really come to discover is that so much about this really is getting down to the core of who you are, of what is really alive for you in any given moment, right? And what's alive for you in this moment might be different from what's alive in you after I finish this sentence, right? So it really is about finding the tools to connect in to what's alive in you in this moment, and then respond with equal compassion for the other person. And yes, there are tools I can give. Yes, there are scripts and words I can give, but ultimately it all has to come from what's true for you in this moment.
Yeah, like the intention behind it, right? Because a lot of times there's like the structure of the sentences, the word that we use, but in reality, if we don't connect it in a certain way, we're actually coming from the heart versus coming from the head.
Yes.
Kind of, it has a different meaning and tone how it comes out. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think that that's a big piece of actually what I do with people, is to help them connect with what their intention is, right? So if they come to me and say, I want my kid to brush their teeth every night and they're just not brushing their teeth, my intention is to get them to brush their teeth, right? They're like, that's the intention. And so I help them dive deeper, right? Deeper than that. Like, what is the intention behind that? Why do you want them to brush their teeth every day, right? It's about dental hygiene. Why is dental hygiene important? I want them to have good habits that they carry forward into adulthood. Why is that important, right? We just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And 99.9% of the time, it's wanting love, wanting ease, wanting peace, wanting joy for the other person and for yourself, right? Like that's usually what it all boils down to, right? Either one of those or both, right? What I find with parents, oftentimes it's like for the child, I want them to be happy. It's okay if I suffer, but I want them to be happy, right? Once we really dig down deep, right? And so the intention is important, but it's important to get to that intention before we even begin the work, to go deep, deep, deep down into what is the most important thing here. And when they get to that core, they find two things happen that are so interesting. One, when they talk to the child about brushing their teeth, the child's more likely to brush their teeth. It just happens when you come from that place of like, I love you. I want to connect. I want the best for you. I want you to be happy. You know, I want a great life for you. Like if that's the energy you're asking someone to brush their teeth with, as opposed to, I want you to do what I want you to do, right? They're more likely to say yes. Like that's just like an awesome side effect. And I try to remind people, like, don't let that shift to your intention. It's easy to then go like, oh, if I do this, I'll get the yes. That's now my new intention. It's like, you got to stay, you know, connected with that deeper desire. So we're more likely to say yes. And the second piece that's really fascinating is it's much easier for you to hear no. The kid says no, you're like, hey, like this is not coming from you brushing your teeth. Like if you skip a night here or there, like ultimately it's okay. You know, you'll get that deeper intention that I want, which is like the love, the peace, the feeling of empowerment, the feeling of knowing who you are when you grow up, you know, like
playing the long game, basically, right?
Oh, totally.
Short little battles that we win.
Totally. That's right. I keep them all focused on the long game. That's it. Beautifully put.
And so like when you talk about it, you make it sound really simple. Like you said, ultimately it all comes down to this core intention, which is usually around love, joy, peace, and ease, things we all want in our life, but it's never really that simple. You know, like if it was that simple, we would need to hire coaches to get there. So what have you found tends to be some of the blocks that keep people from even being able to realize that it comes down to such a simple intention?
Yeah. I mean, I would say on the super just practical top level answer to that is we weren't, for many of us, we don't have models of being treated like that as children ourselves. You know, not a lot of people that I knew grew up in houses that were interested in sharing power, in cultivating connection as the primary force, right? Of not having a kind of a power over dynamic, like I'm the parent or I'm the teacher, what I say goes, like I'm the mom because I said so, right? Like that's a lot of what we learn. So we don't even have the tools or the skills, a lot of us, to raise our children any differently, you know? And so like, that's just kind of like on the superficial level, it's learning the skills. And that's one thing I'm so excited to share, because people are they're so thirsty for that. They so want that, you know? And then on the deeper level, if we were robots and I could just like plug in the program, then we could do it. We could do it all the time. But we're not robots. We have our own experiences. We have our own ups and downs. Like someday my kid says to me, I don't want to brush my teeth. I'm like, cool, okay, we'll skip tonight. Other days he says, no, I don't want to brush my teeth. I'm like, I'm not okay with that. Right? Like I myself am changing moment to moment to moment, right? We're all changing moment to moment to moment. So it's learning how to handle ourselves. Like in that moment when he says, no, I don't want to. And I think I'm not okay with that. It's like learning to not react from like what's coming up in me, and then cultivating a practice of pausing. And it doesn't have to be a long pause, but pausing long enough to see, hey, there's something happening right here that needs to be addressed before I can address this person in front of me, whether it's my child, my partner, my friend, my boss, whatever. So cultivating practices that allow us to look within ourselves and know and understand what we're seeing, right? We can look within ourselves and judge ourselves for what we see, hate ourselves for hate what we see, be scared of what we see, be sad about what we see, right? There's so many ways to relate to that. So learning how to relate to ourselves with a lot of tenderness, I mean, something happened recently, I wish I could remember, with my little one. And I remembered my own experiences. Like, I remembered going through what he was going through in that moment. And I remembered how I was responded to, and I could just cry. It was heartbreaking.
Right.
And so I needed to kind of manage, like, that's not his problem. like I needed to manage that to be able to come back to him and show up with him in a different kind of way.
That's so interesting, because recently, so the whole shelter in place and things like that, people get a little angst with each other. So I had a little like mini, not really a fight, but a little bit of a energy kind of what do you call conversation in general. And so I was totally fine. I was like good and dandy, resting, chilling after I worked. And then for him, suddenly, like, he had so much to do. My fiance had so many things to do, so many things. And he thinks that, like, when I ask one question, in his head, he thinks, oh, you've asked this 10 times already. And explodes onto me. And I'm like, where did this come from? I just want to know what's in your head. And so if that person wasn't good in the first place, that bleeds into my energy. And then after that, I was like, why am I feel so angry. I don't know what's going on. I'm not angry. There's no reason for me to be angry. I was just sitting there, watching certain things.
But you were able to take a moment to pause and feel that. Like
I had to feel it. It was just like a wish. And then we went to Sprouts to, buy certain groceries. I'm like, and talked to some person at the one of our complexes. I was angry with her. And I was like, why am I so angry with her? And then that little thing that she did that I know I usually don't like, but that exploded in my head. I was like, oh man, I'm so angry.
And I think Itzel, like Kate, that was a perfect example, because what I want to talk Itzel to kind of go more into, and then Kate, I definitely want to hear your take on this, because we talk about it a lot, the chain reaction kind of thing, and how, Kate said it started with her fiance, and then Kate felt herself angry, and then she felt like the little thing she's used to happening anyway made her even more angry than what it normally would. And Itzel, you mentioned how when it comes down to being able to have these compassionate conversations, communications, we just never had that opportunity to even know it existed in our youth, which probably means that our parents didn't have that opportunity, and no telling how long that went on. And one of the things we hope to do on the podcast is create like a generation of healing by bringing awareness to these things. So I know for me, I guess I can start this round. For me, in our household, it was just like you said, Itzel. Mom, why can't I go outside with my friends? Because I said so. Because I'm mom. Because I'm mama and we do what I say. And, I've had a lot of the experience lately when my kids ask me, well, Mom, why not? I can remember how I felt as a little girl. Not, being angry and hurt that I'm asking you why not, because I truly want to understand. I want to understand so I can make it easy for you, my single mother who I see struggling day to day, and I'm big sister, so I want to do my part, but you're shutting me down and I'm just trying to talk to you, and like, I can't remember the day. I remember the feeling of when I had that first moment with my daughter and she was, Mom, why not? And I felt the reaction of, because I'm mom, come up. I felt it in my throat. And then I felt the little girl say, remember what it felt like when you did that. And so now the conversation in our house, as annoying as it gets, I am not going to lie, it is really hard. When they ask me, why not? Because mommy wants to make sure you're safe. Because mommy wants to make sure that this and this, or mommy has this and this going on, and right now it's just not a good time. And I am amazed by how simple that has made other things. Because now it's no longer, well, I want to do this anyway. It's not that power struggle. It's a let's cooperate and get this together. We talk about cooperation at the house and stuff. And
So it's
so
like they understand like what's going on in your head versus like,
yeah. And they're not having that child ignorant experience, because children, ignorance is bliss, you know, and children live in their own make-believe world where dragons can come out at any time, you know, like we have no idea what's going on in their head. They have no idea of the realities in an adult's head. And so the power struggle is pointless because neither one is understanding each other. And it creates so much unnecessary hurt that we then carry into adulthood when we have trouble unpacking, because to us that was normal. That's what we grew up under. And so what I've been loving, like with talking with Kate and with you, Itzel, is seeing that there are people who are realizing this, and now the conversation is shifting to where can we start? You know, what's the, like, when I asked Kate, you know, you had to sit in that anger. When did you learn to just sit in anger? Because that's not something we just one day decided, I'm going to sit in this and be angry. Nobody wants to sit and be angry. Everybody wants the anger to pass, you know? So where can we learn from like the simplest place of, I no longer want this feeling. I no longer want to feel angry like this. So what can I do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I just so appreciate that question. And, you know, and I want to actually even back up a little and talk about what you're trying to do, which is create a new generation of healing and of shifting how we're interacting with ourselves and with others, because I don't want to downplay like how radical that is. I mean, it's deeply, profoundly radical, you know, what you're doing, what we're doing. And I just want to name that, you know, it's incredible, you know. It could be that no one in our lineages has ever seen anything like this before, or who has never experienced what our children hopefully are, you know, going to be experiencing, what we are going to be experiencing. So it's really like, it's awesome, like in the truest sense of the word, you know. I'm filled with awe when I really think about what's happening here. So I have to say that.
Thank you.
But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, learning to sit with the emotions, the difficult emotions, again, so countercultural. I mean, we're really taught from seeing, from like what's modeled by us, to like actually physically, literally taught how to keep ourselves distracted. You know, how to not be with what we're feeling, how to not be with the grief, with the anger, with the frustration, with the boredom. We're not even allowed to be bored. It's like, pick up your phone. You don't have to be bored. Why be bored? Right? We're not taught how to be with those difficult emotions, any kind of discomfort. And what happens as a result is we devise these mechanisms, these different habits, you know. I kind of hesitate to use the word addiction a little bit because it's so loaded. But we develop these different addictions, really is what they are. And certainly some are much more destructive and damaging. I don't want to try to compare, you know, like one with another. But we develop these addictions to not feeling what we're feeling, not being with what we're being with. So for me, how I learned to be with what I was being with, first, I came to it in a way a lot of people come to it, to a solution, to having to find a solution where the feeling I was feeling was so big, I couldn't distract it away. You know, I couldn't distract it away. I'd lost a family member. I lost a job. I lost a really important relationship. I was just like in the depths of despair. And I tried a lot of things to not feel that despair. I tried a lot of things. And nothing was working. And so I heard about this yoga class. It was either a meditation class or a yoga class. I heard about it. Someone had said to me once, like, that I'd probably benefit from it. Some very insightful human being said that to me. And so I went, and it was meditation. It was a meditation class. I went to this meditation class, and I was it's interesting to say that I got hooked right away, but I did get hooked right away. And I remember when I started my meditation practice, which is basically what I'm going to come back to when you say, like, how did you learn to sit with it? Meditation. But I'm telling you how I got there. I started meditating. I would meditate. I would do what I thought was meditation for like hours a day, literally hours a day. I created a little space in my apartment. I would sit for hours a day and I would cry. I would just sit and just cry, just like the despair, just waves of despair washing over me. And I'd never done anything like that before, right? I was a big time distractor. And I made it through. I survived it. And that was extraordinary. It was something I didn't think I could survive, that level of grief and despair that I was feeling. And I did. And I was hooked. And that was it. Yeah, and that's how I got there. And it was a long journey from there. It's nice to think like I had that, however many weeks period of just like crying. And then I was done and I was great all the time.
So you said what you thought was meditation.
What I thought was meditation, which was, it was a kind of meditation, I guess. I was sitting in silence, ostensibly, I thought it was silence, right? There was no sound around me, but there was a lot of noise in my mind. And I was with that noise, and I cried.
Okay, so then what I'm hearing is there is a difference between actually sitting with your emotions, and allowing them to wash over you, feel them, acknowledge them. I definitely feel that's something we don't do as a generation. I know us millennials, my friends, we've had some interesting conversations because I am the one who would be like, well, why do you feel that way? Like if they say something that what made you feel that way? I don't know. I just feel it, and it always leads to good conversation. So what I'm asking is there seems to be a difference in sitting with the emotion, acknowledging the emotion, and then meditating, like being still, just despite your emotion. I can't tell if she froze or if my question.
Yeah. You froze a little for me, but then Zoom caught me up. I got it. You zoomed ahead. Yeah, it's interesting. There are many different kinds of meditation. The meditation that I have probably cultivated and practiced the most is the meditation on the breath. Mm. So I'll sit, I'll find a comfortable seat, I'll focus on my breath. And by that, I mean, I genuinely just watch my breath. I imagine it almost as if I've never breathed before and I maybe will never breathe again. And I try to pay attention to my current breath that carefully. Like, what is this experience of breath? And if I notice, like I'll do that for a while and then my mind will wander without my realization, right? And then I notice and I go, oh, my mind has wandered, and I just come back to the breath. And that's the meditation I do. And so there is like an intentional quieting of the mind there, right? Because the voices, the thoughts that come up, and then I go, oh, wait, where are you going? Come here. We're doing this now. And so that's the meditation I practice now. But there are so many forms of meditation, and so many I share with my clients, right? That's not for everybody. Mm. But that's the one that I'm currently finding really supportive in my own journey of learning to be with whatever is arising in the moment, whether I'm on the cushion or off the cushion. Yeah.
So what would you say an example of a meditation that doesn't seem like it's meditation, but it's actually a meditation? So people who can't really sit, on by themselves, be in that silence yet, or come to that eventually, like how do they start? Because a lot of times, like when for example, my fiance, it's like he's one of those like ADHD guys, tech guys, that's just always on his phone, always on something. And so to even fathom him being in silence, you can't imagine it because it's not gonna happen. So how would you say to someone else if to be in, because no one wants to sit in that thought. No one really wants to be in that, sadness, whatever feeling it is, because the purpose of these, addictions, all these different things, is to avoid it, is to escape all these
Distraction.
things. Yeah. And so what would be something that's, oh, that actually is a meditation that you didn't realize? Like, what would it look like?
Yeah, I love that question because I have a really strong yoga background. So I've worked with a lot of yogis, and there's one quote that's gone around in my circles from a revered teacher that goes like this: everybody should meditate for at least 30 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, then you should meditate for an hour. So you may think of your fiance, like maybe he should meditate even longer then. That would be the advice, right, from the teacher. Yeah, so so for me, meditation is essentially keeping the mind focused on any one thing, right? So complete focus on any one thing. And so different styles of meditation, you'll hear all kinds of different styles of meditation. So there's meditation on the breath, there's walking meditation. A lot of people who have difficulty, sitting still, they'll enjoy walking meditation. There's loving kindness meditation. I mean, I could go on and on. And what they all have in common is that you're bringing your focus to one point. So even walking meditation, you're not just like strolling along, walking down the path in the woods, right? And different schools of thought have different styles, even of walking meditation. But the way I teach it is you're noticing what it feels like to shift the weight onto one foot so that you could lift up the other foot. And then you would lift up that foot, you feel it moving through the air. You notice the heel striking the ground first. You feel the rolling of the foot toward the ball of the toe, the gentle shift of the weight, and then you pick up the next foot, right? So it's focus, pure focus on one thing. And the mind will wander. The mind will wander. So the invitation is to continue returning to this point of focus. And so that's meditation. So there are millions of kinds. And I often recommend people who feel like I can't sit, I can't stay still, I can't quiet my mind, which is fine. No one can. No one can quiet their mind. That's why we meditate. I recommend walking meditation. I also recommend gazing meditation, where you gaze at something like a candle, and you gaze at the candle until you can really hold the image of the candle in your heart, and then you close your eyes and hold that image within you. I think of it as in the heart. You could just think of it as holding the image within. And then eventually the image will kind of dissipate, and then you open your eyes, you look at the object again, hold it in your awareness, and then draw it in again. And you just keep doing that. So yeah, there are different styles of meditation. And so I work with people to see what suits them best. But ultimately, like I said, it's a point of focus. But I want to address what you said too about we do these things because we want to not feel these terrible feelings. I mean, even in, I have construction noise around here. Is it distracting at all? Okay, great. So even in, with a lot of teachers that I work with, it's like the goal of meditation is to be enlightened. So then you're free from the suffering, you're free from the ups and downs, right? And what I've really found is that when I'm meditating to try to get somewhere else, like if the point of my meditation is to get somewhere else, so to get to enlightenment or to get to freedom or to get to the end of suffering, there's like a slight kind of violence to that. There's like a way that I'm saying who I am, what I am is not okay. Like I'm not here for this. And so what I really work with people to get in touch with is that this is okay. Like all the ups and the downs and the grief and the joy and the sorrow, the dark thoughts, the dark days, like that's all part of our human experience. And can we be with that? And can we give that love, that part of us love as well? So that's just such a huge piece of what I'm wanting to bring to the world, is to allow people to experience their humanness, their full humanness, and accept it, and even love it, even embrace it.
That's so interesting, because when I work with, or talk to moms in general, postpartum, certain things like that, like there's certain energy that they feel before pregnancy and after pregnancy. And it's almost as if you're chasing that energy back because you're so tired all the time. And so in a sense, when I work with, clients in regards to, chiropractic, certain things like that, I want to help them, their bodies do what it's supposed to do, allow it to heal, all these different things. Yes, the energy is good, it's a good benefit of that, but sometimes when you feel that tiredness, the fatigue, certain things like that pain too, it's not horrible. It's not a horrible thing. It's your body telling you something is going on right now or the past couple of months that's making you feel this way. Now, have that awareness and then continue doing something that you need to replenish, nourish, that it was lacking before. Because, not everyone's always consistent with everything that they eat, everything that they do, exercise. No one's perfect. That's life. And so being in tune, that makes sense why yours says attuned, but of that, no, I get it. But in regards to knowing that high and low, ebb and flow of energy is part of life, in order to treasure that happiness, that baby in the future. It's not like I'm doing this, I'm eating this kale that's disgusting because I want a healthy baby. That's not something that, is I would encourage, because that will make you suffer even more, and you'll hate eating what you need to eat, because not because of your nourishment in your body, is because you're doing something for a end result that may or may not come with what you expect or when you expect it to, and then you suffer even more when it doesn't come at a certain time. So I love how you mentioned that, being aware of that, and just be and treasure those ebbs and flows times, whether it may be good supposedly or bad supposedly, it's still a part of you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And in the realm of health, it's really interesting too to think about this, right? Because I remember after I had my little one, my body was not the same, and there was pain, and there was all the things. I definitely
hey, I can't wait for you to have kids so you can laugh as hard with me, because the way she said it just now, that's what it's like. It's like, whoa, I knew my body would change, but damn, it's like
oh my goodness, exactly. And so so we're on this journey. So I was on this journey to healing, right? And obviously I wanted to heal, I wanted to be out of this pain, but focusing on this future when it's over isn't gonna help, right? I needed to just be with this. This is what I got, this is what I have right now.
And
yeah, go ahead.
And so I'm really curious to know, because it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, to be in the moment and to, experience full humanness, because society teaches us can never be a complete human, because there's always something we can improve on, So it's not easy, and new things take time to learn. So about how long, Kate, you too, does it take for y'all to see differences in people when they're really struggling with this aspect of their wellness?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you, Kate.
So if you think of, I love Kate Northford's book because she highlights this really well when she talks about cycles and phases. And so when she mentioned, at least for the month, in our cycles, in our menstrual cycles, it's not like we're chasing the ovulation to get a baby, I mean, after you have a baby, you still want ovulation because that's part of your hormone health. And so a monthly cycle is something that you can notice a difference of how it's shifting. And if you want to look at a little longer, the 120-day cycle is basically based off of how your egg matures. Doesn't literally mean you need to have a baby for every single egg that you have for every single period, right? But it's the health of that, the environment of that shapes it. And so every 120 days, every 4 months, your body is kind of giving a phase of what's been going on. So if you're listening to this in the springtime of this episode, it's in regards to what happened 4 months prior to that. You know, the holidays, it's December, January. Did you splurge a lot? Did you have a lot of stress? Was it family time that stressed you out? Did you have a happy moment? What was going on? And now that what's happening to your period on in the premenstrual cycle and certain things like that, are you having more symptoms? Are you like having an extended cycle, or are you having a shortened cycle? What went on during that time is prior 120 days, about 120 days prior, because that's when your egg matures in that environment. So now it's releasing and kind of shedding in that aspect. So that's how I gauge every month wise and every 120 days.
So about a month, every 120 days. Like those are the milestones which you'll start to see changes. How about you?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I even like this image of cycles because yeah, I mean it's everywhere, right? It's everywhere in nature. It's mirrored. This whole idea of cycles is everywhere. And I think it's also true of spiritual journeys. I remember starting like those first days when I was just crying. I imagined like that my journey to enlightenment, or to be free from suffering forever, was going to be kind of this straight line. Like I'm in first grade, then I'm in second grade, and then I'm in third grade, right? And it was just going to be like a straight line, and maybe not a straight line up, but a straight line. But really, it looks more like this up and down thing. Or, you could even think of it as a spiral, where you're back in the same place where you were, but it's a little different, right? It's like you were saying, like every menstrual cycle is not identical. Like maybe it happens even if it's exactly well-timed, like every 28 days, it still doesn't look the same every time you come back around to day one, exactly the same. And every cycle isn't exactly 28 days either. So yeah, I like thinking of it as cycles, and I do think that there are milestones that occur, like shifts that occur. I think also with coaching at like 30-day mark, I see changes at like a 6 to 8 week mark. But really, I see the spiritual journey, which is what this is all about to me. Like healing, wholeness, health. It's physical, it's mental, it's spiritual. I really see it as a life journey. Like I don't see it as I'm not gonna ever get like the graduation cap, like woohoo, like I'm always gonna be on this path, and I mean, I think that's life. Life offers me a new opportunity every single moment to begin again.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's forever. It's a life journey.
A life
multiple lifetimes, depending on how you look at it.
And what I love about, especially the two of you talking about the cycles of it and the life journey of it, if we want to talk about it in terms of motherhood, and like Kate, I love when you brought up the kale example, because something I thought of too was, you said you're suffering because you're eating this kale that you don't like, with expecting an outcome that may not happen. But like what I even took from that, I'm sorry, the kids are playing some pretend game. The dragons, I told you, the dragons. And but not only were you eating the kale with an attached expectation, you're not even eating the kale for yourself. You're eating it for something outside of you that you again have no control over. And so when we think of, especially women who are struggling with infertility, trying to conceive, and they're doing all these things, just the right things to get the baby, just the right things to have the healthy pregnancy, what happens when that baby gets here? Does your body get neglected? Then there are the moms who are going to say, well, I'm a nurse, so of course I'm going to have to take care of myself to nurse. Okay, well, what about when your baby's done nursing? What about when your baby's off to college? What about when your baby's married and has their own kids? When are you going to become important enough to realize you can't, this is something I read on your page earlier, Itzel, you can't serve others if you can't serve yourself, you know? And so that's why I was really curious to hear what you had to say of like the milestones you reach, because I know for me, and I also like that you guys said 30, 120 days. I'm realizing I'm coming up on my second year of this real intensive self-love. I made myself a promise starting today, and it was like almost 2 years ago. Starting today, every single day, I'm going to do what makes me happy. I literally said, I have no idea what that looks like, but I'll figure it out every day. And I just started keeping lists. And the first 30 days, it was like, oh, happiness isn't really what I thought it would be. It's not this like rainbow in a box and butterflies and stuff. It's being able to cry and not feel ashamed for it. You know, it's being able to speak how I feel and not feel like I'm the bad person for being honest, you know? And so I love that we're talking about this in cycles so that women can realize it is a minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day decision. You know, this doesn't, and it doesn't get easier. Like, yes, you up level along the process, but I can even speak from experience. When you drop down from somewhere you used to be as far as your discipline and maturity in yourself, and you go back to a old version of yourself that wasn't serving you, getting back to that place that you got comfortable in, you know, where you were serving you, it's hard because now you're beating yourself up for allowing yourself to fall and you're missing the life you did create for yourself. So it's easier to just keep going, but that's not easy. It's not easy for us to choose to do these things for ourselves every single day. And so that's why I'm excited for the podcast, because we need these tools, we need these resources, we need these conversations to point out like, yeah, I did it. But like Itzel said, she cried for how many days, you know, in one spot. I know for me, when I started learning, you know what got me meditating? Arguing with my husband. I would go sit behind the couch. I would make sure I could feel my body pressed up against the couch, feel my feet grounded onto the floor, and I would sit in the hurt until I wasn't angry. And sometimes it would be the kids coming to my face, Mom, I'm hungry. I'm angry. Go ask your father. I need to take care of me right now, you know? And so, yeah, I love hearing you guys talk about the cycles for that reason, because it's not going to look the same every day. It's not going to look the same for everybody. It's not even going to look the same within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I love how you mentioned it, like how every minute, every hour changes. And as what's currently happening in general, the awakening of that literally everything is changing. And so for people who actually escaped and try to get rid of that feeling, when they, you know, watch TV the whole time, that's the time where you don't keep track of time. You just want to go have time go away. And it's that aspect of, no, it's literally every minute is an opportunity. Every hour is an opportunity. Are you going to take that opportunity? Are you going to utilize the opportunity for something better? Or are you just going to escape somewhere else where you don't have to feel it? And so I love how you mentioned that part. And this is like the whole, that's what I love about this podcast. It's like this realization of how, which is opening the conversation, that there is opportunities literally everywhere. It's just if you want to take it.
I love too that, I mean, I think it's important for all of us too to understand, like, everything that we're doing, it's like this behavior that we're exhibiting, like we are practicing something, right? So what are we practicing, right? And it's like you were saying, Tara, it was like, you know, I think about my own journey to have my little one and other friends and people I've worked with, their journey. It's like, okay, I'll relax. I won't be so stressed once I'm pregnant and then I get pregnant. Okay, when I hit 12 weeks, I won't be so stressed. Okay, 12 weeks. Okay, after I get out of my, you know, first trimester, I won't be so stressed. Okay, once the baby, you know, is like at 32 weeks, then I won't be so stressed. Okay, when the baby is born, okay, then I won't be so stressed. Okay, once I get breastfeeding down, then I won't be so stressed, right? It's just like, we're practicing, and like what makes us think that we're gonna hit a wall? First of all, I don't see that we're gonna hit this point where we're gonna say, okay, I'm okay now, I don't need to stress anymore. First of all, I can't imagine that happening. But if that did happen, what makes us think we know how to not be stressed now? We just spent all this
Our
time
whole life stressing.
right? What makes us think we'll know, like, okay, this is how to not be stressed?
I would like to, Kate, that book you mentioned too, it's on my Amazon list. So we probably should start like a book club list or something.
Oh, there you go.
But the book she mentions is called The Woman Code.
Okay.
By Alyssa Vitti. Alyssa Vitti. The book I want to mention, now that you've mentioned that, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Spinoza. Like, oh, that was how I learned to sit my butt behind a couch and meditate until I felt better, because that's what he talks about in the book. When you've been, our brains are programmed to go to our brain wants our body to go into, what's it called?
Homeostasis.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Because I am not a doctor. So thank you. But that's what our brain wants us to do, which is, for those of you who are like me, the state where our body is just responding on its own. We don't have to think too hard about it. You know how you can walk without thinking. It wants us to do those things like just without thought, just pure reaction, reflex. And living a life full of stress is a conditioned environment. We're conditioned to live that way, and that becomes our homeostasis. And there are so many studies, I don't even have to go into them because they're everywhere, of how bad stress is literally a killer. And so being able, though, to tell your body, this is no longer homeostasis, I have a new homeostasis I would like, your brain is like, you're funny. That's we're doing what we've been doing for the last 20 years and you're here. So, and it is a practice, like you said, whether you realize you're practicing it or not, you are practicing a life that is killing you simply by living with the agreement that stress is okay for you, And so if you are struggling with changing up the habits, I highly recommend that book. That book will literally strip away any excuse you have to continue living life the way you're living it if you're not happy with it.
And it does take time, right? Because a lot of times when you're physically, like your physical body's been doing a certain thing for so long, once you get that adjustment, that tweak, it's not gonna be comfortable. Your body be like, let's get back there. Like, let's keep pulling those other muscles. You're like, why am I sore? Like, what's happening? I don't like this. And then you keep on.
Because you said muscles, did you know that in order for a muscle to grow, it has to be broken?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be broken. I figured Kate would know that.
You have to tear it up.
You have to tear it up. And that's why we feel sore after we work out, because that's the healing process, but then it's getting stronger. And I can even speak to on my spiritual journey. I actually said this to my coach not too long ago. I noticed I go through this cycle where I will work really hard. And then there will come a day where I realize, well, Tiara, you've done all the work you need to do to get what you're trying to get. Maybe today you should rest. And like, that's the first thought I get. Take today to rest. Turn on Netflix. I barely watch Netflix. Turn on Netflix, get you some popcorn, chill. And my body's immediate reaction is, no, we have to work. No, we have to do this. So for like 3 days, I'll be in this battle with myself of let's rest, let's work. And it's exhausting. And then finally, one of the days I'll say, you know what? I'm going to rest. I can't do this anymore. And the next day, whatever the outcome it was I wanted, it happens. Like the next day after me deciding to rest, I'll get the email, I'll get the whatever it was I was looking for. And in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, he talks about having to get to this place of no time, no, I know I'm butchering it. I used to have it written on my wall, but pretty much this place your body has to get to where you're like, no matter what happens, I'm going to do this. I'm going to see this through because I no longer wish to live this way. And that seems to be, I know in my fertility story, that was the magic place for me. when I finally decided, you know what? Whatever happens, I'm going to trust that my baby is coming. We got pregnant the next month. Like nothing special happened. And then other little stories that happened, I've heard those things too. I'm going to let y'all conversate while I talk to these kiddos.
No, I've heard similar stories. I can't even tell you how many people in my family, you know, and friends as well, who have just been so anxious about conceiving and finally just giving up and just saying, forget it. It's just not going to happen. And then the next month they get pregnant. And it's like, really, it's something about that letting go, releasing that stress, releasing that holding. I think being present and having that acceptance, like the natural healing that comes from acceptance, is so powerful. And I mean, I'm sure you have stories.
Because physically, if you think of chemically, physically, stress isn't just something we say or just feel, because literally those hormones are going at it. And so it's not just like the cortisol hormones, it's the insulin, it's the female hormones, it's all these different hormones that take up what's going on. And if something is revved up, all the other ones kind of suffering, trying to like kind of scurry, what do I do? But then once those hormones kind of relaxes, kind of balance and harmonize itself, that's where the magic happens. But we get too stressed, too in our thoughts, too cerebral thinking about everything, that it just shifts everything else. And so
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just continuing the conversation about stress and how it just really, we lose the internal balance. Yeah, just catching you up, Tierra, where we were at.
I heard, you know, that we were having a lollipop dispute.
Oh,
is that what that is?
Why not?
That happens to sister things.
So Kate has a magic question she would like to ask you.
Okay.
So talking about everything in general, certain things that you do with your clients, you know, we like to ask a question like about the good, bad, and the ugly. Because a lot of times people say, oh yeah, you know, meditation's so easy, and you know, all these different things, or like, you know, getting your life together is so easy. You just gotta do X, Y, and Z. So with all the people that you've been working with in regards to motherhood, what's the good, bad, and the ugly that you'll recommend to someone else that is struggling or wants a slightly different insight to awaken that journey for them?
Yeah. I mean, I think with all the work I do, from the meditation to I also do energy work with Reiki and chakra healing, is that we have these ideas, right, of what we want for ourselves. We have, and we also have these judgments of what we believe is good or is acceptable, right, for us, or what we're willing to admit about ourselves, and what we're willing to acknowledge about ourselves. All these things, we have a lot of judgments. And one thing that this work does is it kind of strips all our stories away and gives us an opportunity to see what's really there. And we don't always like what we see. I mean, I would say that is kind of maybe the ugly, right, of meditation, is we start seeing things that maybe we don't like, maybe we didn't know, maybe some part of us knew but didn't want to admit. And that can be frightening. For people. It could be upsetting. It could be discouraging, right? People who thought like, oh, I'm so close to supreme enlightenment, and then I look and I'm like, oh, look at this mess in here. Right? It could be discouraging. And so, you know, my invitation for folks is just to really begin to cultivate like holding yourself into that self-compassion, that self-empathy, and recognizing that all of this, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right, it's all part of this journey of life. And that if we can actually even move out of the judgments, even move out of the labeling it of good or bad or beautiful or ugly, right, we can just see it for what it is, which is just a piece of our journey, just a piece of our experience, and that everything is changing. everything is changing, the good and the bad, right? So to just watch the flow of life as it moves through us, and to try to not to move away from that place of judgment, and to just to be the witness of it. That's what I would say.
It's beautiful.
I love that.
Lovely.
Thank you so much for coming, for sharing. I actually learned something about myself I will share with y'all after this.
Okay.
So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
And can you tell us where we can find you online, connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at attunedliving.com, ATTUNEDLIVING.com.
Awesome. Instagram?
Yes.
Okay.
Around, we'll chat.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to be here.